This is a Squiz podcast. We're your shortcut to being informed.
Hello and happy weekend. Welcome to the Squiz Quiz of April, where we'll test your knowledge of the serious and the silly subjects that popped up in the news over the course of the month. First things first, just want to flag, we've done 2 election campaign specific quizzes. You can find those over on the News Club channel. So for this episode, it's a largely election-free zone. We're not going to do any more questions about that. We're sure you're filled to the brim with election stuff. So we're looking at everything else that happened over the course of April.
Problem. I kind of studied the election for this quiz.
We're off to a very poor start.
Dear.
And joining me to start poorly is taking up the baton for carryover champ Kate Watson, who wandered over in a haze of victory to maternity leave. Claire Kimball. Hello, Claire.
It was a bit of a haze for her. I've caught up with her. She's had her baby. All is well, in case people were wondering.
Yes.
Everything is great. And look, I haven't had a great run in the last few weeks of quizzes. So, look, Nicoletta, we'll have to see how I go.
And that Nicoletta that you just heard is our content manager, Nicoletta Hay, joining us for her first appearance not only on the Quiz podcast, but on any Squiz podcast altogether. Nicoletta, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Are you excited?
A little bit nervous.
Okay.
I've said my prayers and I'm wearing my lucky socks. So we'll see how we go.
Is it any podcast? Is this your first ever podcast?
Complete debut.
There you go.
Apart from the voice messages that I send to my friends that end up being about 15 minutes anyway.
Yeah,
It's good training.
I've seen a few of those flying about from my partner. I know what those tend to be like. They really balloon out. That's all right. We'll keep it nice and tight on this episode. As usual, we have 10 questions that are worth 1 point each, but we still have our famous final round, the gauntlet, which is worth a maximum of 5 points. So all in all, if you're playing along at home, you can score a maximum of 15 and see if you can best our contestants in the studio. We'll start with the big news, and as always, with round 1, we're going to look at the news here at home. Round 1 is all about the big stories in Australia for April, and I'm going to start with this one. Which Australian state was primarily affected by floods over the course of the last couple of months, really? It's been not just April, but before then. Those floods resulted from a low-pressure trough that was topped up by rains from ex-tropical cyclone Diane. I'm quoting The Guardian directly on that, just to give you a specific touch point. So which Australian state was primarily affected by those floods? And question number 2 for round 1. Which 2 recipes were the subject of a bit of a stoush between big culinary names, Nagi Mahashi and Brooke Bellamy, right at the tail end of the month? This happened right at the end of April, where Mahashi accused Bellamy of plagiarising these recipes, something that Bellamy has denied. Which 2 recipes did Mahashi allege that Bellamy plagiarised? And I will give you half a point each for each correct answer there. Okay, let's start with the first question. Nicoletta, I'll give you the first cab off the rank. The honour of going first. Which state was primarily affected by those floods?
That would be Queensland.
Claire?
Indeed.
Yes, it is. It's one of those stories that I think has been overshadowed a little bit by the election. And, we've covered it on the Squiz, but probably does need a bit more attention because it's a scale of disaster that is genuinely hasn't been seen before in Australia, this type of disaster.
And something that we're going to see as well because meat prices, beef prices particularly, will go up as we sort of head into the next half of the year because there were around 400,000 cattle killed in that disaster. So a really terrible time for them there. Yeah,
and other livestock as well. So definitely, if it's something that you haven't come across up until this point, definitely have a look into it because it is it's something that worth being aware of. So on the other side of the fence, depending on who you ask in terms, it is a serious issue, not as serious. What 2 recipes were the subject of this accusation of plagiarism, Claire?
That would be a caramel slice and a baklava.
Yes, Nikki?
Yeah,
Yes.
I got the same.
Okay, caramel slice and baklava is one of my favourite words to say. Baklava is absolutely right. And lawyers are involved in that, so that might be all the commentary we offer on that.
Except delicious.
Oh, delicious. Yeah, I'm sure.
That's all we need.
All terrific. I never turned down a caramel slice. Not in a million years. What an invention that is. So yes, but those are the 2 correct answers. If you had only one of those, you can give yourself half a point, a caramel slice and a baklava. Let's move into the world at large. Round 2, we're looking at the big news of the world, and we'll start with another serious subject. Pope Francis died in April after a long period of extended ill health. What I would like to know is, what country was the only South American pope ever born in? Which country was Pope Francis, now known as Pope Francis, born in originally? And question number 4, what did US President Donald Trump dub April the 2nd, which was the day that he announced global tariffs on international imports to the US? So what did US President Donald Trump dub April the 2nd, which was the day that he announced global tariffs on international imports to the US? Nicoletta, thoughts on Pope Francis and his birth country?
Is he from Argentina?
Is he from Argentina, Claire?
Don't cry for me, Argentina.
He is from Argentina, yes, absolutely right. Nice bit of a Vita reference. I'll always take a musical theatre reference in any
I thought
episode.
you'd like that.
Yeah, I did like that. That was very good. Yes, no, it is Argentina. Not only the only South American pope, but actually the only South American pope that was born in the Southern Hemisphere when he came to that position. So we'll see if that continues. What did US President Donald Trump dub April the 2nd, Claire?
I was hoping they would call it something fun like Great Big Fat Tariff Day, but they didn't. He called it Liberation Day.
Liberation Day, Nikki?
Yes, Liberation Day.
Liberation Day is right. There's a Chris Isaak song called Graduation Day, and I always have Liberation Day going around in my head instead, thinking about that. Yes, Liberation Day. It did take a little bit of digging to work out exactly why Liberation Day was the choice. It wasn't sort of immediately apparent, but I believe it was around liberating America from the terrible tariffs. That
America's going to be free from being chained to other countries' supply chains.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So that was the rationale behind
Get the vision,
term
Andrew.
Liberation Day. Oh, yes.
You need soaring flags and
soaring
eagles
flags and a big
things.
board.
Yeah.
I remember the
Very
big
big
board.
board.
Oh, very big board.
Yeah, the very big board of different tariffs.
Do you want to give us a remix of Graduation Day, though? With Liberation Day?
little parody version. I need to come up with some other lyrics. That'll require some thought. It's also a very low key song. I don't think it fits the Trump vibe.
Pretty melodramatic. Yeah.
I feel like he's a high
low
octane YMCA type. This is a bit
Gotcha.
this is a bit low energy for him, I think. So at the end of round 2, you should have a score out of 4, and our score in the studio is 4 apiece. Haven't missed one so far. Let's move on to sport and entertainment. All right, this is round 3, sport and entertainment, and I'm going to start with this one. On the 24th of April, the West Australian government agreed to a deal with the National Rugby League to bring which team back into the competition? I am
Sporting team names, we're firmly established, is not my thing.
I knew when I wrote this, I was like, Claire's going to be so mad. I am looking for, in this case, just the team nickname. So, for example, if it was the Melbourne Storm, I would just be looking for Storm.
Okay.
That's what I'm looking for. So on the 24th of April, the West Australian government agreed to a deal with the National Rugby League to bring which team back into the competition? I'm only looking for the nickname of the team. And question number 6 on the entertainment side of things. The Academy Awards is making a big change to how its members vote on winners. What will members now have to do in order to vote that they didn't have to do before? So the Academy Awards is making a big change to how its members vote on winners at the ceremony. What will the voting members now have to do in order to vote that they didn't have to do previously? All right, in what I think is probably the most troublesome question so far, Nikki, thoughts on the new West Australian Rugby League team? New/old.
You've set me up for a little bit of failure here, I have to say. But I'm not feeling the sabotage quite as much because I feel like Claire and I are probably on the
I feel
same
like
page.
it's very personal, quite honestly.
I also feel this is an extra level of personal because being from WA, I really should be knowing these things. And I could go for a safe guess of what could be a potential name based on other teams, but I could also go for something a little bit more fun.
I'll go for the fun one, I reckon.
Seeing as though I'm losing the point. Anyway, the West Coast Quackers.
Oh,
Love it.
Would be pretty fun.
I love it. And
That'd be
cute.
fabulous.
You know?
Yep.
Super cute.
Represent.
Yep, good photos. Claire?
So this is showing my age. In my recollection of rugby league, anyway, is that the legacy teams that aren't in the comp are the Newtown Jets and the North Sydney Bears. Newtown Jets, I don't think it is. So not the Jets. I think it's the Bears.
It is the Bears.
Yeah.
Well done. You got it. Yes. So these are the North Sydney Bears. Actually,
impressive.
I believe a foundation club of the
And I
NRL.
remember the only reason I've remembered this in any stretch is going, I'm sure the people of North Sydney feel a bit funny about that.
It's a bit of a weird one. The people of Perth and WA feel a bit funny about it as well, but it's what they've agreed to.
There you go.
They're going to play most of their home games in Perth, as you would expect, but they will play, I think, at least one game each year around North Sydney. It's all still being worked out a little bit. But yeah, it'll be we don't know yet whether it'll be the WA Bears or the Perth Bears or the Rottnest Bears. I don't know. The Drop Bears. I don't know exactly what it'll be at this point. But
Manjimup Bears.
The Manjimup Bears, exactly.
Rockingham.
There are so many great WA place names to choose from. But it will be the Bears. That is absolutely right. Formerly of North Sydney. And so it'll be from 2027. I think that team comes into the competition, or at least that's the plan at this point. So well done, Claire. Very nicely done.
Thank you. You tried to get me,
Didn't succeed.
but I prevailed.
I did think I would, if it was up to me, I'd go for the Clockers, though. I reckon
Yeah,
that's
I like that.
maybe not a super intimidating name,
Yeah.
but a better one. All right, the Academy Awards. What do members have to do now that they didn't have to do before, Claire?
I've written down, watch the movies, !
Yes,
They have to watch them.
they do have to watch them.
Every single one of them.
Yes, they do. I'll give it to both of you. They have to watch all of the movies. So previously, it was kind of like an honour system. They only really had to watch some, or they didn't even really have to watch any. They could just go on vibes and still vote. But now they
Amazing. That's
actually have
ridiculous.
to watch all of the movies. The interesting question is, how do you police that?
Through a portal.
Yes.
Like training programs. Anyone who works for a company knows you have to watch a certain
do.
number of videos every
You
year.
do.
So I'm sure the technology exists.
Yes, but then my question is, how do you prove they've watched them? Like, you could just play them and be asleep at your desk.
Everyone's watching. Like, eyes on you.
Yeah, okay. All right. Maybe there'll be a quiz afterwards.
Maybe there's a quiz,
questions.
exactly.
That's what they do with the portal.
56.
Yeah.
They ask
That's
you
right.
if you've taken everything.
Compliance matters.
Exactly. We've all been through that. It's not a lot of fun. But yes, they will have to watch every nominee in order to be able to vote on them going forward. Something that many, many people who aren't involved, or aren't followers of movies have expressed to me that they were surprised wasn't the case beforehand. But it was.
It is quite
It is
surprising.
very surprising.
Yeah. So very well done. At
Still
the
a
end,
good job, though.
Oh, ripping
Yeah.
job. Yeah. I do it and I don't get paid. At the end of round 3, we have Claire on a score of 6, Nikki on 5. Round 4 is all about quotes. I'm going to give you a quote and a sort of profession of the person that said it. You need to tell me who that person is. Which athlete said this in April? The road ahead will be challenging, but I'm willing to take it on.
That's so vague.
It is vague.
I mean, how many athletes are being challenged?
Well,
All
I can
of
give
them.
you. I'll tell you what. I'll give you more information in
Okay.
case it's too vague. This is an Australian athlete
Yep.
that underwent some adversity
Oh,
in April.
Some adversity, in April.
Yeah,
Okay.
very famous Australian athlete, but suffered some adversity in April. And I tell you what, this one isn't broad. Which musician said that he had contracted and I quote, 17th century pirate disease in April?
Oh, I did see this story.
We did it
yeah.
in the Squiz.
Yes.
Yes. So there was a musician that revealed that he had contracted previously to April a 17th century pirate disease. Who was that musician? Okay, Nikki, who do you think this athlete is that said that the road ahead will be challenging, but I'm willing to take it on?
was it Mary Fowler?
Claire?
I've gone gout.
Gout. It was Mary Fowler. Absolutely
go.
right. Yes. The
Oh, yeah, she
knee
did an
injury from
ACL
Yeah.
or something, didn't she?
ACL playing
Yeah.
for Man City, yeah.
Yeah.
And so now has a real tight turnaround to try and make it for the Asian Cup, which will be
Yeah.
on Australian soil in just over a year's time. ACLs generally take 9 to 12 months to recover from in the traditional rehabilitation method. So that's going to be tight to get on the pitch by that point. And we've seen with Sam Kerr, like
I was
it's
going to
not.
say, is that the injury that Sam Kerr has?
I believe, she also did an ACL.
Yeah,
So
wow.
it's a really tough. It does happen with a lot of prevalence, particularly in women's sport, and it's such a tough injury to recover from and get back to what you were before. That's the other thing. You can get fit again, but whether you're going to get to the same level again is always a question.
Such a tough mental game as well, having to overcome all of that.
Yeah.
It's like me and my hamstring. I never got back my sprinting abilities.
When did you do your hamstring?
Oh, it was just before COVID, like literally a week before COVID. I took my hamstring. Long-time squizzers know this.
Okay.
I took my hamstring off my pelvis.
Wow.
What?
Yeah.
You
it was
can
a
do
whole
that?
thing. Yeah.
That's rough.
That's a whole other
See,
podcast.
Nikki and I are short-term squizzes, so we're both looking at each other with shock.
My ballet, gymnastics, sprinting career out the
all
window.
out.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was a whole thing.
Never play the piano again, as they say.
Exactly.
Yes, that's tough. I'm sorry you went through that, Claire. I've never had an injury of any severity, largely because I don't play a lot of sport.
Yeah.
Which musician said that he had contracted a 17th century pirate disease, Claire?
I think it is Robbie Williams when he fessed up to having scurvy.
Nikki?
That would be a good guess. If I was,
If it was a guess you made.
if it was one that I had thought to make myself.
Sure.
Unfortunately, I went with Paul McCartney, thinking that he might have had a bit of a pirate partying back in his day and took things to another level. But Robbie Williams probably is a good
I
shout.
like the chain of thought, though.
It's a good chain
you're
of thought.
definitely onto something.
Thought your way through it. It is
Poor
Robbie
Paul
Williams. Robbie Williams did get scurvy. He said he had some mental health challenges and he stopped eating well. He stopped eating fruit and vegetables. Scurvy, of course, the disease that sailors got because they didn't have enough fresh fruit and limes and lemons on their ships. So it was very much a 17th century pirate disease, as he described it. So Robbie Williams is correct.
I had a colleague I used to work with and she only really liked eating popcorn and we were waiting for her to get scurvy. We would occasionally offer her fresh fruit, but
No? More popcorn? Okay.
Popcorn was her thing.
Yeah. No,
Maybe she just hadn't found the right format of fruit. But then again, there are so many options. Even fruit roll-ups would surely have a bit of nutritional value.
some
would think
vitamin
so.
C in there. I can't eat popcorn more than, and I go to the movies a lot. I still can't eat popcorn more than once a week.
Oh, she's a fiend.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Each to their own. No judgment here. Certainly. I've eaten a lot of popcorn in my time. No
I
judgment
think I
here.
could do it.
Bit of judgment here, but anyway.
You're allowed to,
Exactly.
though. You know the person. That is correct. Robbie Williams is right. So 1 point apiece in that round, which means Claire still has a 1 point lead. The score now is 7-6 after 8 questions. Let's move into round 5, which is multiple choice. This is where we tend to get into the quirkier news of the month of April, and I will give you 4 options as to what the answer might be for each question. So we'll start with this one. 2 British police officers successfully managed to apprehend an illegal gambling operation that was targeting tourists on Westminster Bridge in April. But who were they dressed as when they did it?
Oh, I remember this story in the Squiz.
Was it A, Bert and Ernie, B, Barbie and Ken, C, Batman and Robin, or D, Woody and Buzz Lightyear? So they were legit dressed as these characters when they pulled off the sting, and they were dressed as either Bert and Ernie, Barbie and Ken, Batman and Robin, or Woody and Buzz Lightyear. Which of those were those 2 British police officers dressed as? And question number 10. I was reading about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this month because they announced their class of 2025. And something that I learned while reading about it is that you only qualify for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame 25 years after you put out your first album, your first commercial release. So going by that, which of these artists technically qualifies for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
So they didn't have to be.
So essentially, which of these artists put out their first album 25 years ago in the year
Gotcha.
2000 is
Okay.
basically the question. So there are 3 of these that won't be old enough
Yes.
and 1 that will. Is it A, Bardot, the pop group, the Australian pop group, Nikki, who is...
I feel like
who
I'm
doesn't-
slightly better positioned
Yeah.
to answer this.
Nikki doesn't qualify for the Hall of Fame as a human being.
Yes, exactly.
So-
It's definitely been shorter
Slight
than 25 years
disadvantage.
since she put out her first
So
album.
this is a tough one for you, Nikki. I apologise.
That's all right.
A, Bardot.
Bardot.
B, you should have seen the look of bafflement on Nikki's face.
Like, what the hell?
If you're watching the video version.
Sounds like Do Re Mi. Like you're doing some solfege.
Yeah. B, Delta Goodrum. Yep. Yep.
Familiar.
Okay, cool. C, James Blunt. D, the Pussycat Dolls. So the question is essentially, which of those 4 artists put out their album the longest ago in the year 2000 specifically?
The year 2000 specifically.
It was specifically the
Yeah.
year 2000, yeah. So they would qualify as of this year because their first album is 25 years old. So a bit of a history music question more than a news question, but it was an interesting topic that I didn't realise that you had to be around for 25 years. And some of the artists that apparently have been around for 25 years and qualify are a little bit disturbing for me in terms of the passing of time.
Delta.
Bardot, Delta Goodrem, James Blunt, the
Yep.
Pussycat Dolls.
Okay.
For those who are unfamiliar with Bardot, it was Australia's first sort of synthetic pop group put together by a reality TV show.
Yeah, they won a TV show.
They did, yes. I won't give too much more information
Yeah.
in case it's too much of a clue. Okay. Who were those 2 British police officers dressed as, Nikki?
Batman and Robin.
Claire.
Batman and Robin. I wish it was Bert and Ernie.
Bert and Ernie would
I
have been
wish it was
magnificent.
Barbie and Ken.
Yeah, that would have
I
been
just
great.
want to know who's who.
Yeah, that would have been awesome. It was Batman and Robin, appropriately a crime-fighting duo, as they quite literally fought crime. And then which of those artists would qualify for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because their first album release is, as of this year, 25 years old? Claire.
I think it's Delta Goodrem.
Delta. Yep.
Bardo was certainly around that kind of time. James Blunt and Pussycat Dolls, I think, were into the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going with Delta.
Okay, Nikki, you're hiding to nothing with this one, but what did you come up with?
See, I might have to go with the name that I didn't know existed, which was
That's
Bardot.
an interesting point.
Seeing as though it was around before my time,
Yeah.
it seems like the one to give a crack at.
And you're absolutely right. It is Bardot. Yeah, so you've claimed back the
go.
point.
Intuition.
So Bardot, Pop Stars was the TV show. I think Jackie O was one of the judges.
Sophie Monk.
Sophie Monk was one of the members of Bardot. That's where she
how she got her start.
got her start. Yeah.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
They released an absolute banger called Poison in the year 2000, which is worth going back and having a listen to. It's a great song. They didn't really manage to follow it up. But then Delta Goodrem released her first album in 2002, I think, 2002-3.
Because remember, she was dating Mark Philippoussis.
Yes,
It
that was
a
sort of
whole
that.
thing.
That was the Out of the Blue stage. That was a little bit later.
Yeah.
Sort of 2005, I think.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
James Blunt put out Back to Bedlam, I think, in 2003-4, and then the Pussycat Dolls put out Don't Cha and their first album in about 2005.
There you go.
Yeah. Basically going up by age. So we are heading into the gauntlet with everything all square at, by my count, 8 apiece. All right. This is it. This is where we sort the wheat from the chaff. The final round. The gauntlet, named after the final round of the TV show Gladiators. I am going to give you 5 quotes.
Not Pop Stars.
No, not Pop Stars.
It's not after the
No, but
section in Pop Stars.
around the sort of late 90s
Okay,
kind of
gotcha.
pop culture where most of my references come
Sure.
from. I'm going to give you 5 quotes or things that were written about a news story from April. What I want you to tell me is, in this case, basically what the news story is, a key phrase. There are 2 key phrases that I will accept as a correct answer here. One is 1 word, one is 2 words. If you give me either, I'll give you the point. Okay? Does that all make sense?
Makes sense.
All right. So I'm going to read 5 quotes. We're going to pause for a bit of thinking. And then once you lock in, you're locked in. So in the studio. So once you've decided on an answer, you have to say your name. Write it down.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then we'll reveal whether you were correct at the end of the quotes. And if you're playing along at home, you can keep guessing or you can play with the same rules. Kind of up to you. You get to little dealer's choice at home.
We're not the boss of you.
No, you can do what you want. So this is quote number 1. Again, I'm looking for a particular story. Keywords in this story, either 1 word or a 2-word phrase. We're starting on a bit of a grim note. Humans fear death. It is that's not the end of the quote. That could be about anything.
General statement.
Yeah. Humans fear death. It is possibly our most primal instinct. We mourn and feel great sadness for the death of an individual, not only because they are gone, but because it is irreversible and final, permanent. That finality is the same for humans or any living animal. Yeah, you might realise, 5-point quote for a reason. It's going to be the hardest. They get easier as we go along. Anyone locking in on 5?
No.
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 Yet.
More quotes? Okay. Quote number 4 for 4 points. When we found out that we had singleton puppies in each of those litters eventually, that was actually maybe not the optimal outcome, but it's pretty optimal.
Singleton puppies.
Singleton puppies is the exact quote.
Death and Puppies.
Yeah.
Okay.
Terrible book title.
True.
Our new album is Death and Puppies. All right. Anyone locking in? I'm going to move on to 3 points.
I feel like I could, but I don't want to lose. So no, not yet.
Okay. Our 3-point quote. If you only address the genetics and technology side of things, you're creating the trees without the forest.
Yep.
Yeah.
Locked?
I'm in.
Claire's locked.
Me too.
Oh, okay. Well, looks like either way we're going to a tiebreaker, but I'll continue for everyone at home. This is the 2-point quote. Colossal also has plans to bring back the woolly mammoth, an even stupider idea, but one that Elon Musk is excited about. And then the 1-point quote. This is Remus. He's a blank. The first to exist in 10,000 years, endangered species could be changed forever. All right. Well, it doesn't make much of a difference, but Nikki, what is the key phrase I'm looking for?
The direwolf.
Claire.
That's what I've got too.
Direwolf. Yes, absolutely right. If you had direwolf or de-extinction, I would have also accepted. So this is the story about a biosciences company in the US that claimed that they had brought back the direwolf, which was an extinct species for over 10,000 years. And then that created a big debate about what actually is de-extinction. Have you just created a new species that is a slightly edited version of a grey wolf? And an entire scientific debate that I do recommend getting into because it's a really interesting story.
Nikki and I know a bit about it because we worked together on a piece for our Saturday Squiz newsletter.
Oh, there you go.
About
Yes,
the direwolf.
absolutely.
Yeah,
You would have
tracking
too, yeah.
down some pictures and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that what you were thinking at 4 points?
It was.
Oh, so close.
I know.
Should have gone for it.
I know.
So just for reference, so that first quote, death is humans fear death, etc. That is from a joint article by a group of scientists for the Conversation website. The second quote about the singleton puppies was by a spokesperson from the company Colossal. The third quote about the technology side of things basically says it was by a conservation expert to the BBC, basically saying we're worrying about de-extinction, whereas we should be worried about conserving the species that we currently have. Like it's not going to be a catch-all fix. And then an opinion piece from the New Republic about Elon Musk. And then that last quote is the front cover of Time magazine that actually broke that whole situation, the whole story around the direwolf. Well, that means we are going to a tiebreaker question. Oh. And for our tiebreaker, we play closest to the pin, where I will ask you for a number. I'll get you both to guess a number. Whoever's closest to the actual answer will win the quiz. Okay? So here is our tiebreaker. A big story from April was the Blue Origin space flight with the all-female crew featuring a range of notable people, including Gayle King and Katy Perry, who tended to sort of dominate a lot of the headlines around it. I was wondering about the cost of these sorts of flights.
Yeah.
And so I went and found an article that said that in 2021, Blue Origin auctioned off a seat on one of its spacecraft. And at that point, that is the highest amount that we can find in terms of what someone has paid for a seat on one of these craft. How much did that seat go for? In US dollars.
USD.
USD, yes. I thought conversion was too complicated. So in US dollars, how much did it sell for at auction in 2021? I'll get you both to write down a number. It doesn't matter if you go over. It's just whoever's closest. And, of course, you can play along at home. Okay. Do we both have a number?
Yep.
Yes.
We got one written down?
Yeah.
All
Are
right.
you confident?
Enough.
Oh, okay. That's a honestly
see.
higher level of confidence than I expected.
I am not at all.
Okay, all right, good. Nikki, what did you write down?
I said 125,000 USD.
125,000. Claire?
We've got some pin matching to do. I've gone 25 million.
Oh.
25 million.
Oh, okay.
The answer is $28 million.
Oh my God.
Yeah, well done, Claire. Very, very close. Very close. That clearly,
There you go.
that twigged in the memory. So that lodged in the
Something.
memory somewhere.
Yeah.
Wow.
I remember the guy and I remember the moment. He's a multi
Yeah.
billionaire
Chump change.
kind of guy. And it was a whole thing that they were starting to do this. So to have a it was a lot of the commentary around who is this space travel stuff really
Actually
for if you're auctioning seats to billionaires. So it's not so much about the scientific advancement after all. So I do remember that, yeah.
Yeah, so $28 million. Very well done, Claire. I did have a second tiebreaker just in case. I was like, I'd be unlucky if you were equidistant from the answer, but I did have a second one lined up to go. But we don't need it, so I'll save it for next time. Claire, very well done. You have just narrowly claimed the quiz. But, Nick, you have to say, wonderful effort, like a really good performance. You know, Claire's no slouch. As long-time listeners know, no slouch at all. And you've done well.
Gave her a little bit of a run for her money.
Exactly.
Yeah, sure did.
Exactly.
Sure did. And my winning losing streak is over.
And I get to keep my job.
A good outcome.
Yeah. Everybody wins. Hopefully you won as well at home. Thank you very much for playing along. Let us know in the comments how you did of this episode, or email us at hello@thesquiz.com.au. As always, if you got 15, we want to hear about
amazing.
it. If you got 2, we want to hear about it. Like, you let us know. We will be back next month in the first week of June to cover the month of May. Thank you very much for listening. Until next time.